Welcome to the Casey Ingram Show Meet Your Candidate series. No spin, no agenda, no endorsements, just the candidate. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the many listeners who submitted questions for this interview. Several of those questions have been incorporated into today's discussion. Questions are not shared with the candidates prior to the interview. If you enjoy the show and would like to stay informed on local issues and elections, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Casey Ingram. Let's get into it. Janet Hernandez is running for the Village of Indian Council seat number 5. Welcome to the show, Janet.
Thank you, Casey.
And I just want to start out, my pleasure. It's good to have you here. And just for those who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're seeking another term on the Village Council, and what motivated you to run again.
Yes. So my name is Janet Hernandez. I have lived here all my life, 35 years, in the same house, same block. I have a lot of family here. I recently just graduated with my master's in public administration. So that gave me a little bit more of in-depth of how staff should be working in the village of Indiantown. Reasons that motivated me to run were stories from neighbors, family members, just frustrated with what's happening, the transparency, that they felt that they didn't have any voices, especially after the vote with FPNL did speak to, I was very surprised actually, aunt that had gone to a meeting, which when she told me she had gone to a meeting, I was like, wait, what? She's like, yes, I went to a meeting because my daughter took me. She went and what she saw was how there are the people involved that were sitting in that room for opposition, where people were out of town or that were not, going to be very affected, but that were concerned. And the residents of Indiantown were not there, like no show. Some were, not many, but in Indiantown, I think just getting them the word out is a key. And I think that the lack of communication within the village has motivated me to run. A lot of people are lifelong residents wanting to move out because they feel that after incorporation, they lost that voice. And they see all the division that came in after incorporation. And so I'm one of those that I don't lose hope on my community. And I do think that this go round is a little different because now I have that education, which is the public administration. I was able to talk with other people that work in it, that have taught for many years. My professors, they were awesome. So I think this go round is going to be more of a hands-on, being very vocal. I always was vocal, but I think this time it's going to be more positive.
Now, Janet, you just mentioned something that honestly I noticed as well, that when that annexation was coming through, there wasn't a lot of residents at the meetings, at least speaking. So how would you solve that issue? I know reaching people is super difficult and also super important. What ideas would you have on a major decision like that, making sure the community understands what's going through?
I really think having workshops before major decisions and having it in the language that they understand and having it in ways where they understand, it's broken down to language that they understand specifically, because you can have legal terms, but not everyone will understand a legal term. And statistics says that in the census that only 9% have a bachelor's degree in Indiantown. So a lot of people don't understand that it's pages and pages and pages. So I do think community workshops before major decisions and having, when you have it all translated, it's very difficult when you're trying to do a decision when you're going back and forth. So I do see, I was in the room where people that didn't need the translation got very upset and frustrated, but having a workshop where everyone's in the same level of in Spanish, and you don't have to go back and forth and translate technical words or anything, the flow is so much better. So I think explaining it that wise is easier.
Okay. All right. Now, looking back on your previous service on the Village Council, what accomplishment are you most proud of, and what lesson has made you a better public servant today?
most proud of was the advocacy that I did while I was in service. I did have, I think it was 6 years of Home Rule Hero, just teaching people that what the laws in or regulations in Indiantown are different from the laws in Miami. And so I think now this time I'm going to put all that to work in this go round. So that was one of my accomplishments, the Home Rule Hero.
Perfect. And then the second part of that was, what lesson has made you a better public servant today from your time on the council before?
One lesson you said?
Yes.
Okay. So one lesson would be,
So something,
it would be basically when I came into office the last time, I didn't know what was what. I was very new. We had a brand new council, new to government. We didn't recognize what was happening. So for me, what I've learned is that I have to make sure that I research. And so I think when I came in the last time, I told everyone I was not going to get all my decisions correct. There are decisions that I think we could have waited longer, like the fire department. That decision we were working too fast. We should have gotten a handle of what we were doing at that instead of going into the fire decision. But at the end of the day, we were trying to negotiate with the county, and the county didn't want to come to the table. We were trying to negotiate. And so that's what happened. But we ended up getting some type of money from the county. I don't remember exactly how much. I think it was like 1.2 from the county.
I think so.
Yes. So that, I think, understanding the community and knowing their whys. So I think that was one of my lessons, like slow it down, and if someone has a position, sit down with them and get to know that position.
Yes, I remember that. I think it was 1.2 million. My memory is not so great, but you said that figure and it sounds familiar. So I do remember that. Now, Janet, if you're elected when your next 4-year term ends, what do you hope Indiantown looks like, and what legacy do you hope you have helped create?
The legacy that I want to create is I want to create a town that's united, because we've had a very divided town, and we know the reasons why. And I really want to unite and make sure to get more residents involved. Like, my mission is to get residents involved in every way, like in our decisions and in our community and these committees, because these are everyday decisions that are going to affect the everyday person. Not only, like, it's not only going to affect me, it's going to affect them too. So having them understand that they need to be very, very focused on these elections and on this council, and bringing us and having us accountable, because I can say I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But I can say that I'm accountable to the residents, because at the end of the day, the residents are the ones that vote you in and vote you out. I'm not doing this because I want power. I want to do this because I need to teach my residents that they need to come out and vote, because this is their livelihood. Who fixes your street? It's the local leaders. Who fixes your water? It's your local leaders. If you want something at your park, who fixes that? And understanding the process, because I did the first time, or throughout this time, I've learned that there's a lot of things that people don't see. Everyone has like full-time jobs, but they have to take some time out of their day to at least see these videos and get involved, because this is the everyday decision. And I know, like, I was talking to new residents, and that hometown feel is what a lot of people like. I love Indiantown because my next door neighbor, if something happens, we can reach out and help each other. So I think that is one of the things that I want to accomplish, that everyone can say, oh, I want to stay here. I want my next generation to grow up here.
Now, looking back at your time on the council, what is one decision you would absolutely make again, and one decision you would handle differently today?
One decision I would make today would be purchasing the water. Our water was owned by a private entity. And that was being discussed while we were on council. And fortunately, our council decided to buy it. And it's very well known. The reason why I ran the first time was because I was getting backup in my house. Like every year, it was a constant every year thing that we would have to live with sewage backup. And when I say sewage backup, like it would back up to our sinks, to our restrooms, to our like our tubs. We couldn't use anything, and we would have to wait for the private utility to bring out their crew, and then they had to contract someone. So I see now that we have the staff working in the water utility, and if that ever happens, there's more, like we've given them a lot of resources. There's a lot of work. That's not something new. We know that we bought an old system and a system that was never updated. We know that, but there has to be work done to that system. But I do think that was the most positive thing that we could have done for the village, because if someone as a private utility would have come into Indiantown, it would have had to repair and do all that stuff and not go for grants. We have been able, fortunately, we've had a lot of grants come in on that. And recently I was looking at one of the village meetings. Even the current mayor said that, that's something that our water is we're getting a lot of grants, and we wouldn't have gotten that possible with the private utility. So I think that was one of my positive votes. And then votes I would change.
What's one decision that's right you would handle differently today?
One of the decisions I would handle differently today would be the fire department, just because we were very new, and we were just too eager, I think, at that time. I currently think with how the state is looking into that property reform tax, I would not look into that right now. That could be probably another 50, 60 years. I don't know, but not currently. I wouldn't. And I think that's one of the votes I would have changed. I don't think that, a lot of our residents have voiced their opinion how they love the, and they're happy with how the Marin County Fire Rescue, team functions. And so I think that's a vote I would have. If I could take that vote, I'd take it back.
Very good. Residents have raised concerns over the loss of early village financial records. While no criminal charges were filed, many people remain concerned about how public records could disappear. What was your reaction when you learned those records could not be located? And what lessons should the village learn from that experience? And what safeguards would you support to better protect public records moving forward?
So for me, it would be, I wouldn't do an independent contractor. I would make sure we have a person, an IT person. Not one person should be doing everything. And I think separation of duties is what needs to happen in the village of Indiantown. Because the clerk or the finance guy should not be doing the, changing logins or distributing. I think that has to go under a separate umbrella. And for that to not happen again, we need to make sure there's set protocol in regards of what happens during, transfer of laptops or whatever the case is. So I really think that it's unfortunate that happened. As a council member, that is not something that we would control. That is something that the staff would control. So to help the staff, I would set protocol to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay, that was going to be kind of a follow-up question. If you felt like the council had enough oversight over what was going on during that issue. And you just said you would definitely make sure that staff has some tools to make sure that there is some more oversight. What lessons did you learn from losing your re-election campaign?
What lessons? Many, so many. God, let's see. Resiliency, because people, especially special interests, and I know they'll be looking at this, because they thought that they got rid of Janet. I'm still here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I am so.
And Janet,
I'm very resilient in regards of they played with my mental health and they did not care. But I do thank them because they were my main pushers and I'm back. So I care about this community more than ever because this is the community I've lived for the last 35 years. And my opponent has been saying that I get emotional. And yes, I get emotional because this is 35 years I've lived in this town. And to see people that don't care and only care about their money, their special interests, their financial gain, it really gets me so livid. This is not because I'm weak, it's because I get livid talking about this. Because people think that in Indiantown, no one's gonna show up, no one's gonna get up and fight back. And currently this is what we're seeing. And I'm so proud of these new residents and for Eric Miller to have been sounding the alarm ages ago because there was, and there currently is, there is a set agenda in Indiantown, but I'm telling the residents they need to go out and vote. If they don't want to vote for me, it's fine, but they need to go out and vote. And this selection is very important.
folks, if you don't think it's easy, or if you think it's easy putting yourself out there, it isn't. And you do, Janet, you take a lot of heat and a lot of it is not founded or justified, but being on the public dais like that, it is tough. And I appreciate your raw emotion is what I'm getting at. And I know you're being just genuine. And that's all we can hope for from, your whether you want to be a politician or not, when you get elected, you become a politician. So you do hope that you have honest conversations. So,
oh, yes.
Jana, how has your perspective changed since serving on that council?
My perspective has changed a lot. I do see how, the residents feel being on the other side. And that's why I do know if elected, I will make sure that residents don't feel that way. The emailing. When I served on council for 6 years, I was an open door policy. But I think this time it's going to be more, you're going to see more activity from me in regards of community events to informing people to what's it called, having office hours. Because the people deserve, they deserve your time. They deserve, because this is to the new residents, they're coming in here spending $400,000 on a home, but at the end it's what, $800,000, and thinking that a data center is looming in the future. They have a right to question everything that's happening now, because you just moved your whole life here, your whole worth, and having a data center looming over it. And no one wants to live next to a data center, a hyperscale data center, because Indiantown does have a data center and it's very small. I've actually had a tour of it a few years ago, and it's very small. And from the last time I had heard, they only had 2 businesses on that, and they had a lot of openings. But to have a hyperscale data center where I'm seeing national elected officials going out to these places where they have they were caught off guard. And so I really think that we need to be very careful of the decisions we make, because this is the livelihood. They're going to be affecting your energy bills, water bills, and health. I'm very concerned. I know my family can't sell everything and just move out. Where are we going to go? And I have a lot of family here.
Right.
So we can't do that. I know I've even had people from Stewart ask me, what do you think about them? A lot of people from the East Coast are worried, and they should be worried, and they should be helping us with advocating and sitting in these meetings, because our community is not, they're not being informed. So, I thank the people that have come out to these meetings and that don't live in the village of Indiantown. Thank you, because they literally have been voices to other people that haven't had the opportunity to go to meetings or just aren't informed.
Now, another topic, during your previous term, we'll have more on data centers here later, but During your previous term, you voted to hire Howard Brown as village manager. Looking back today, do you believe that was the right decision? Why or why not?
Howard Brown came into Indiantown through a regular process. People have been telling us that we hired him, we knew him before. I didn't know who Howard Brown is. He was a professional like everyone else, put his resume in, he went through the process, and he got the support from community members because he met with community members, and a lot of them were very, telling us who they were for. I think that going through the process, I went through the process and he was the one. So what else? I wish Mr. Brown well. He was a professional, but we went through the process. If I ever have to go through another village of manager, I would go with the same normal process. It's a process that everyone, you can even go look through public records. We went through a series of interviews. They met with stakeholders. There was nothing, you can't say that hiring was not transparent. We were very transparent during that process. And you can go back and look that we had the resumes. We had a person that actually went through them. We had a community meeting for the community to go meet with the people. We had stakeholder meetings and we had the public meeting. So the process was correct.
And if you're elected, you probably will be going through this again because Ms. Christo wants to retire at the end of the year, last I heard. So
yes, and so
definitely one of the.
Yes, I tell everyone
have that experience again.
Yeah, I've had people ask me if that would happen, what would I do? And I would tell them there is a process, and I would be so open for you to join me through the process, which would be there were multiple community meetings, there were stakeholder meetings, there was interview privately, and then there was an interview publicly, and we asked questions. So I do think that this coming around, I would be very transparent through the process and have people join me through that process, because people say that we didn't follow a process. There was a process, and I like that process. And that process was done through ICMA, which is the International Credential of, Manager Association.
Managers or something?
Yeah, it's the Manager Association.
Okay. Now, Janet, when concerns later surfaced regarding Mr. Brown's credentials and experience, do you believe the village responded appropriately?
Like I said, Mr. Brown was a professional, and he's not here. He left 4 years ago. So I don't really know why Mr. Brown keeps on. He's a professional. He's a human being. He left. And it's like everyone else, you wish him well, and that's the last time you hear from them, and you keep on moving.
So the big question everybody's going to ask, and I'm sure you've been asked, if he applies again for the position when it opens up, would you hire him back?
I would go through the process again, and he would have to apply again. But knowing the hell he went through, he would not apply. I know if I would have gone through hell, I would not applied.
So the citizen-led comprehensive plan review committee was dissolved early in Mr. Brown's tenure. Why did you support that decision, and would you make that same decision today?
Yes, because we wanted all resident, or at least have 5 residents and 2 business owners. So I do support that, because that was not it. The one before was not. It had a lot of business owners, and it didn't have, the residents, because at the end of the day, guess who lives here? Guess who sleeps here? Us, the residents. So we should be in these rooms making these decisions. And now that Terralagor is here, I think there are people that have those degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and they actually know what's going on. So they can actually help assist with that. So I do think that having a 5 resident board plus 2 business owners, is what the residents want, especially now with this whole data center looming.
Right. Now, transparency is discussed in nearly every campaign. If elected, what specific changes would residents actually notice in how the village government operates?
Newsletters. We got to bring the newsletters back. People are not informed. I do know that people still keep those newsletters that we used to have, but those newsletters were discontinued 4 years ago when this current council came in. So I do think bringing that back on board and trying to see if one way or another cost savings. And if I have to go do the work of delivering them myself, I will do that, because at the end of the day, the residents put me in that chair for transparency, and I will make sure that gets done.
All right. What do you believe is the proper role of a village council member? Should council members primarily focus on setting policy, or should they become involved in day-to-day village operations?
Oh, council members need to be policy makers. They should not be involved with the everyday. And that's where we get in problems, because council members start putting their weight in and start thinking they're strong mayors. And in Indiantown, we are a council member, city manager type of government. So basically, we elect our manager. The council members are the ones that determine the policies, and they tell the city manager what they want to, like, what we're focused on, and that city manager goes out and implements it with their team. But currently, from what I've been seeing, the mayor acts like he's a strong mayor. Each council member has 20% of the vote. And I would say that we need to have the council members stick to what their role is, which is a policymaker. Yes, you can go and ask staff if you have questions, but you can't go and dictate what to do and who to come after. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. We have a lot of residents that feel that they're being retaliated against because X, Y, and Z. So I do think that the council members need to not be like they're a strong type of council. I don't know how to state it, but something like that. It should be council members need to stick to the policy making, and they do need to get involved with communication with the community, and that's by bringing in staff members and having staff members. But to telling staff members what to do on the everyday basis, that is not their job. That is the city manager's job. And the city manager, if you don't like what the city manager does, well, you will bring it up on council meetings so that everyone can discuss this.
Now, Indiantown is changing rapidly. Where do you see the village in the next 10 to 20 years?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do see the village of Indiantown growing. Like we all know, Indiantown is going to grow. We can't say it's not going to grow. It's going to grow. How do I see it? I see it where we have a little bit of everything. We have like some affordable housing, attainable housing. We have parks. We have better infrastructure. We focus on our infrastructure. So I think I see it a little bit more, evolving. I'm excited to see what Indiantown will be in a few years.
It is exciting. You're in exciting times for sure. Now, Janet, what types of businesses would you actively recruit, and what types of development are not a good fit?
Businesses, currently, I can tell you, I don't really know what type of businesses we can go for. But that's one of the things that when I was on council, we made sure that we had an agreement with business development for Martin County to help us with that vision. Because, we know that Indiantown needs to broaden their tax base. And the only way to broaden their tax base is by welcoming businesses. And so a lot of people think that I'm not open to businesses. I am open to businesses, and I'm willing to hear you out. I feel that some people have taken it upon them to act like they're the ones that veto which business come in and which businesses don't come in. And I think that as Indiantown evolves, that's going to change. And that could actually make us bring in other businesses that probably are looking into it, but they'll be coming to the village directly. So I do think that that's something that I'm looking forward to, because businesses are very important. And I can tell you that I like this currently with our small businesses. I'm supporting them too, because we can't forget them. they've been here and they've supported our community, and they continue to support our community in different ways through scholarships, through donations to local schools. I really appreciate the businesses now that are currently in Indiantown, because you're not forgotten. Some feel that they're forgotten, and there's like there's no assistance there, but that this go around, I will be focused on a lot of things. So supporting small businesses will be one of my initiatives.
What are your ideas to create more good paying jobs so residents don't have to leave the community for work?
That is hard, because it's like you can't bring good paying jobs if you don't have the housing. We're slowly getting the housing, but we don't have the capacity. So it's like a triangle, and we have to get everything in check and balance for it to all work. So I would say focus on that water, so that we can try to see how to bring businesses that will do the high paying job, because that's what we need. We don't want any low paying jobs. We want a high, and getting the workforce out there, and getting that education out there too, to our young ones in high school, or getting trade schools out here, which I appreciate.
Now, the village helped secure an $8 million grant to renovate and refurnish the historic Seminole Inn. Do you believe that was an appropriate use of public funds? And more broadly, what role should local government play in supporting private redevelopment projects?
I don't think that was something that the village should have done. I think that there are other dire needs in Indiantown that we definitely need money, and that is even though, it's owned privately, but I do know it's historical. So on the historical side, we should be upkeeping it, but not on the dime of the taxpayers, because at the end of the day, there are other needs in the village, like the water and like the infrastructure. I can tell you, I live 2 streets down, and that whole street is falling apart. Like the side of the ditch is falling apart. And so there are other dying needs in Indiantown that we shouldn't have gone out for that.
Prior to the FPL annexation, the village covered roughly 9,200 acres. That annexation added approximately 5,700 acres, an increase of about 63%. Village leaders have long discussed diversifying the tax base and reducing reliance on FPL, yet the annexation significantly expanded the amount of FPL property within the village. Do you believe that annexation was the right decision?
I believe the annexation was not the right decision, just because we're trying to diversify from FPNL. We can't have all our tax base, even though, I appreciate FPNL for being in Indiantown. And I want to make that clear, because people might take it wrong. But if we're trying to diversify, we need to focus on what's there are current locations in Indiantown that are labeled industrial, that are sitting there, waiting. So I really think that we need to focus on those first before we start annexing in other stuff. We did have another portion annexed in that. I think in that particular one, they were going to donate to the Indiantown High School so that they can do a trade school. So that's one of the reasons why I voted yes on that annexation, because he wanted to extend his marina, but also provide a donation to Indiantown High School so that they can focus on marine industry trades. And so I think that was a great idea, because if we're talking about bringing in high paying jobs, that marine industry, someone was telling me how much a painter for a boat, earns, and it's a pretty penny. So I do think that in that circumstance, I was okay with it. But with this circumstance, if we're trying to diversify from FPNL, we needed to focus on what's already available and what's already still available and empty, and try to see what we can fill it with before we continue to grow the relationship with FPNL and annexing more land for FPNL.
Okay. And yes, the Indiantown Marine Center, you're absolutely right. And they were able to donate some of that land. You're absolutely right, Miss Janet. The marine industry jobs are well-paying jobs. Between the mechanics and the detailers, the painters, upholstery, it goes on and on. Anybody that owns a boat knows that really it's better to have a friend that owns a boat because there's always some repair. But but yes, appreciate you talking about that a little bit. And you've kind of already answered the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's slightly different. Looking ahead, should Indiantown continue annexing land, and if so, what standards should be met before approving another annexation? And how do you diversify the village's tax base beyond FPL?
Currently, as it stands, I do think that we should pause on the annexation and focus on what we currently have, because like I said, our water capacity is up. We're up to capacity, which means that we can't build out at all. So we can't even bring new businesses online if they need any type of water usage. So I do think we need to take care of what's in-house currently before we go in and annex something. Because one thing I do know is my parents immigrated here from Guatemala, and every so often I do go back. And recently, last November, I went back, and having a schedule for water to be available, I'm not used to it. So I was there for a week, and I had to make sure that I woke up early in the morning so that when the water went out at 9 a.m., I was done with my showering. And I'm not used to that. And I know a lot of people in this area, in the US specifically, are not used to it. But people that have immigrated here do know how that works and how it feels. You have to go and fill up every empty item that you can fill up, so that while you're washing your dishes, you don't leave them stocking up. Or if you're going to brush your teeth, you can't laundry, you have to plan around that time. And so one of the things that I think in the national basis and in our state, we have to be very careful, because the water is our necessity. And so if we don't take care of what we have currently, we can probably go to starting schedules, and then we're going to have a problem. So I really think that we need to take care of what we have. I know we have areas that still haven't been developed, and those areas we can target to bring in businesses, but we need to take care of what's in-house right now.
Okay. SB 484, signed into law this year, explicitly states that local governments maintain authority over comprehensive planning and land development regulations for large-scale data centers, while also protecting ratepayers from cost shifts and linking water permits to compliance with local zoning and comprehensive plans. Residents in Indiantown have demanded a moratorium on data centers, citing concerns over water consumption, infrastructure strain, property values, and transparency. However, the council has refused, often citing risk of lawsuits, potentially under SB 180's restrictions on more restrictive or burdensome land use changes that runs through October 2027. This is a two-part question. Do you support or oppose a temporary moratorium or stricter local regulations on data centers in Indiantown?
I would support a temporary moratorium. Why? Because this is a new council that would be coming in. And so for us to get up to par to what's happening in Indiantown, it's one thing being a regular resident, it's another thing actually being informed of everything. So I can tell you in my opinion, how the last 2 years I have disconnected completely from the village in the regards of decisions that had been done. So I need to get up to par to that. So on my personal beliefs, I do need to get up to par what decisions have been done and what I can do. So I would say that a temporary moratorium I would support. And if, a lawsuit comes, our community is looking for they're looking at us, and they this is what they're wanting. So I do think that that's the residents want it. I will give it to them.
Okay. And that was pretty much the second part of the question here. How would you exercise local authority preserved in SB 484 while navigating SB 180's limits, potential lawsuits from the residents or developers, and balancing economic development with resident input and environmental protections? So it is a tough thing to balance with threats of lawsuits and navigating that SB 180. Just, you can weigh in on that a little bit more if you like.
Yes. I think that I recently went to a conference, and in that conference, I was able to talk to different people from different areas on a national basis where they've had no say. And currently, we see Project Tango in Palm Beach County, where you see all the residents fighting for against Project Tango. And I think that informing a lot of our residents of what's going on, that is one key thing, because I've asked a lot of people, do you know what a data center is? And they look at me like blank, and I start telling them exactly what a data center is. It's a building with a whole bunch of machines on 24/7. And then I tell them, like, you gotta think about like it, and they bring them, and it's a huge facility. And so they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So like, I think the communication, there you go again with the communicating it to our community. Because this is a diverse community. So English is not the first language that is spoken here. Spanish is. And currently on that dais, we only have one Spanish speaker, but I don't see anything being said on a Spanish level. And so I feel like if we need to get that communication, we need to get actually someone that can speak it professionally or on layman's terms, but we need someone that can actually talk about it, specifically inform the community that this is what a data center is, because people don't know. People don't know. Like my aunt, like she was so upset at that FPNL PUD meeting. And she told me, she was like, no one shows up. And no one shows up because they feel more comfortable in their native language. Like, I can tell you, like, I speak Spanish and English, but I feel more comfortable in English because I was born here. And a lot of people, they might understand English, but for them to understand it, they process it in Spanish. So it's easier for them to get all their information in Spanish. So it's not because they don't know English. It's just that the way they think in Spanish, and they have to process it in Spanish. And then by the time they're trying to evolve something to say, it takes a lot of time. And like, I can say Americans are just straightforward. And in Latin America, they love to put flowers in their words. Like they love to explain. And so it drags on. And so I think that's the difference. And so bringing people communication here so that they can communicate in their native language would help. We also have a population of Creole. So bringing someone with Creole. So I do think that informing the community is key. And the home rule hero, which is the home rule. We need to have people start electing people into office, not because of party, but because of the way they vote on issues. And so currently, a lot of residents in Martin County, because I've been talking to a lot of people even out of Indiantown, and a lot of them are like, we don't understand this. And it's like, you need to vote people that are for your issues. If you don't want a data center, who's voting? Who's giving you that, that's going to vote for a data center? You need to start asking these people, the accountability. And currently we don't have that. Like people feel that the government, once elected leaders become elected leaders, they forget. And that's one of the differences now of me being elected. If I get elected, I will make sure, because I have had the experience of being elected and unelected. And I know that there's a difference. Like, there's a difference, and people won't approach you because people think that you're not going to be open, but you have to make it seem that you're open. So I'm going to be more visible for the people.
Now, hyperscale data centers are much larger than traditional data centers and can have significantly different impacts related to water use, electrical demand, noise, and backup power generation. Do you believe they should continue to be regulated under the existing land development regulations for data centers, or should they have their own standards, and why?
I think hyper data centers need to be regulated on their own. Currently, in the national level, they need to target that, because there are a lot of communities within the nation that already have data centers. And so we're seeing those effects, and people are like looking into those communities, seeing what really has gone through, what has transpired, and what are the community members are saying. I've been seeing a lot of interviews where some elected officials from Washington D.C. have gone out to these local places, and cracks in your house to brown water to high electricity bills. I recently went to DC with my sorority, and um a lot of them were focusing on trying to advocate on regulation for AI, for data centers, because in Colorado, Georgia's seeing a high increase of electricity.
As Indiantown continues to grow, what infrastructure should be the village's highest priority after water? Roads, sewer, public safety, parks, or something else?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that roads and parks. Those are my two things, because we have a young community. So people don't really realize that in Indiantown, we have a young community. We have people, a lot of babies are being born. We have a lot of young teenagers and young families. So I do think that having our parks handled and getting up to par, because they're not up to par. And we were focused so much on doing the framework for everything the first go round, that it took a while, and people started getting frustrated. But I understand them. But we were starting from scratch. When I say we only had a cabinet full of receipts, we were renting. We were at Martin County's annexation facility, because we didn't even have our own offices. So I think now how I see the village evolve, they have their own offices. They have converted one of the old fire station into like semi gym, and then they have like the parks and rec there. So I have seen things evolve, but I do think infrastructure needs to come in hand, because we're getting these new residents, but they have new roads, but the older sections, the roads are falling apart. As I say, Indiantown Drive, if you even come into Indiantown, you'll come and see. Like, my mom specifically tells me to avoid that street, because you have holes on your right, and then on your left you have the street crumbling down the ditch.
All right. Should new growth largely pay for itself through impact fees and developer contributions, or should existing taxpayers bear more of these costs?
No, I think that the new developments need to pay in. They need to pay because they have to pay for, they're going to impact our roads. They're impacting our roads, our sidewalks, which we welcome, the new neighbors, but we also want that these developers, they come in, they make these communities, and then they leave. And guess who gets impacted with everything? The regular taxpayer. And why should I be fronted with the costs? Because we were trying to give them tax incentives. So I do think that they need to pay for their fair share. And if they really are coming into this community, they need to understand this community, that this community is a much needed community, and be open to coming to the table. Because I'm one of those that, like, I'm anything could happen. Like, if you want something, like you want more homes or whatever, if you can give me money for a whole street, to pave a whole street, it goes all hand in hand. Like, I think developers need to pay for it, because the taxpayers, we're already currently paying for and we're living day to day. We have a lot of families that live paycheck to paycheck.
Affordable housing is a challenge across Florida. How do you encourage housing opportunities while preserving the character of Indiantown?
Affordable housing is a huge challenge nationwide. Like I said, there is opportunities to sit down with developers and see their vision, and then see if there are any way that they can help with trying to alleviate some of our problems. So that all depends on how it works out. I do think having those conversations, those important conversations, because I know what the community wants. The community they want to own homes and their own home, but they don't want to be able to see the next door neighbor within like 2 feet. And like, I've gone to Terra-Lago, and those homes are very close to each other, and a lot of our residents are moving out to other areas where, they have big yards, and so I do think that we should see, like, coming to the table together. Like, I can't do this by myself. I would have to do this with everyone, as a resident, the businesses, the developers. Like, I'm not close to anything, but I do know that at the end of the day, the residents will have my support in it, but we have to come to the table and see what can we do to help our community.
Indiantown is one of the most culturally, you actually were talking about this, Janet, one of the most culturally diverse communities in Martin County. How will you ensure every resident feels represented, including Spanish-speaking families and residents who don't regularly attend council meetings or follow local politics online?
Ooh, you're talking to the cultural girl. I feel that I do. Everyone knows I'm Guatemalan American. I was born here, but my roots are from Guatemala. A huge majority of Indiantown is Guatemalan. We do have a Mexican population. We do have Puerto Ricans, and we do have some Colombians. But we're seeing now more Latino, Cuban, different areas. And so, being open, like I said, having things translated in Spanish, having events where, everyone can have a salsa dance, or like a Zumba-thon, or something where, everyone can join and feel like they're at home. Because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. We're living through the same time, and we need to spread more love than hate. So I do think that cultural wise, I would definitely be down for doing a lot of events that would bring the community together and to one.
Well, you're naturally set up to have a multicultural festival, you guys could naturally do that with so many different nationalities that are there, and that would be a lot of fun. So who knows, maybe in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Janet, imagine we're sitting here 10 years from now. What decisions made over the next 4 years will determine whether Indiantown becomes a model Florida community or misses its opportunity?
I think the decisions are basically having smart growth, responsible growth, because if you have that responsible growth, you make sure that you also tackle your infrastructure. You can't just go and develop overnight and not know the effects that it will have with your traffic, with your utilities, with your infrastructure. Currently, we only have 3 parks in the village of Indiantown. I would love for it to have more parks, because as we grow, we're going to need more parks to have. So I do think that having that smart, responsible growth in Indiantown will make sure that we take care of everything, of the utilities, of the infrastructure, so that doesn't become something like that's behind. So I think that's one of the things that would help for the next 4 years or 10 years of Indiantown.
In one word, what's Indiantown's biggest opportunity?
One word, biggest opportunity. Community. I feel that the community coming all together. We have come together before during tragedies, but now, as we start having new neighbors, we need to show them how we are as a community, being more involved, being more responsive, and treating people as human beings. Because at the end of the day, like currently, this council, I may not agree with their decisions, but I respect them. And why? Because it's hard to be an elected official. It's hard because you have all this weight on you. You have the everyday decisions that can affect you and your neighbors. And so people don't see it like that. They just think that being an elected official is just, power. It's just like, it's something else. No, you have the whole weight of 7,000 residents that have to live with your decision. And so
Are you there, Janet? I lost you for a second. Can you hear me? Okay. So it's okay. You're recording on your side, so when it uploads the recording, it'll be clear. But I lost you for a second on my side. Okay. All right. So what is your favorite place in Indiantown? All right. And why should someone who's never voted in a village election make sure they vote this year? It's a good message, and they need to. What do you think voters misunderstand most about you? You can tell, I know. Very good. And Miss Janet, you have to tell me. So you'd referenced Jackie Clark and a project that wasn't being completed. What project is that? Which happened? Okay. And Jackie Clark, everybody, was recently on the show. She's running for Martin County School Board now, so you can catch her interview as well. Now, Janet, is there anything voters haven't asked you that you believe they should know that we haven't covered here today? Good advice. And finally, Janet, why should an undecided voter choose you? Right place, right time. Janet Hernandez, thank you so much, folks. If you support Janet, she's absolutely right. You need to get out and vote. The vote is going to be August 18th. This race will be decided on August 18th. So early voting is going to start August 8th. You need to make sure you get out there and vote. And honestly, what impacts you the most when you vote are the local races. Those are the positions that actually impact and decide your everyday life more than any other position. So while they're all important, make sure you get out there and vote locally. And finally, don't forget to follow The Casey Ingram Show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more real talk you won't hear anywhere else. I'm Casey Ingram. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Janet Hernandez.